I begin the proceedings. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I am Shaza Arif, on behalf of President CAS, Air Marshal Hussain and the entire CAS team, welcome you all to our seminar on Muhammad Ali Jinnah, his vision and struggle. Ladies and gentlemen, I request you all to kindly rise for the national anthem of Pakistan. Ladies and gentlemen, I request your attention for the recitation of Holy Quran.
Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim.
In the name of Allah, the entirely merciful, the especially merciful.
يؤتي الحكمة من يشاء ومن يؤت الحكمة فقد أوتي خيرا كثيرا وما يذكر إلا أولو الألباب.
He gives wisdom to whom he wills, and whoever has been given wisdom has certainly been given much good, and none will remember except those of understanding.
صدق الله العظيم.
Ladies and gentlemen, to showcase CAS's work,
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
we shall now see an introductory video and listen to a brief message by President CAS.
Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. CAS was established in 2019 to fill in the knowledge and research gaps that existed in the domains of aerospace and national security in an otherwise think tank rich capital Islamabad. To achieve our objective of being amongst the best think tanks of the region and with focused mission, CAS has made significant contributions by providing policy guidelines on important issues of national interest, especially security, both in military and non-military domains, disseminated through direct as well as indirect engagement on regular basis. As part of the advisory board of the Government of Pakistan's National Security Division, CAS has and would continue to serve as a thought leader by providing independent, innovative, evidence-based solutions to strengthen Pakistan's national security, including specific emerging geostrategic and geo-economic situations. Maintaining a winning Aerospace power requires high-end technologies that are not only cost-intensive, but their availability with the passage of time is likely to be challenging. In our region, these technologies are largely acquired. Therefore, working towards our vision of strengthening national security in all its domains through indigenization, CAS would continue to lay emphasis on innovative research on emerging technologies, including but not limited to cyber and space. We continue to enhance our reach through greater use of media, seminars, webinars, digital technologies, joint research, and cementing our relationship with domestic, regional, and global partners. Inshallah, in times ahead, we will continue to build upon our achievements.
Ladies and gentlemen, we will now begin the proceedings of Thomas Carlyle, the famous British philosopher and historian, once famously remarked that the history of the world is but the biography of great men. One may disagree about the universality of this position, but with regards to Pakistan movement, one can say with complete conviction that the 5 points of history coincide with the biography of Muhammad Ali. The two are inextricably connected. The very essence of the struggle for Pakistan was beautifully encapsulated by the Qaid's presidential address when he said, "The vital contest in which we are engaged is not only for material gain, but also the very existence of the soul of Muslim nation." Hence, I have said often that it is a matter of life and death for the Muslims, and is not a counter for bargaining. Muslims have become fully conscious of this. If we lose in the struggle, all is lost. Let our motto be, as the Dutch proverb says, money is lost, nothing is lost. Courage is lost, much is lost. Honor is lost, most is lost. Soul is lost, all is lost. Unquote. Ladies and gentlemen, the Muslims of that time understood pride, even if he spoke in a language which was unfamiliar to a vast people. And why not? After all, in the words of Iqbal, Jinnah was the only Muslim in India to whom the community had tried to look up for safe guidance through the storm which was coming to northwest India, and perhaps to whole of India. Jinnah and his message stood beyond any shade of doubt for his people. Under his leadership, they put on the altar of sacrifice every material possession they had, but they protected the soul of the nation, which came to physical existence on 14th August 1947. 75 years have passed to that message and that miraculous achievement. However, with time, ideas get muddy, convictions become weak, and journeys go directions. This is why every generation in Pakistan needs to learn about Muhammad Ali Jinnah. Given that a firm grasp on Pakistan's history and a clear direction of the state's future remains weak without understanding. His political life, spanning over 4 decades, was dedicated to the service of his people. From the power sharing arrangement between Muslim and Hindus to the partition of India, his struggle was directed towards bringing a smaller nation on equal footing with a larger one. As a nation, we must study his personality, political journey, and vision of an independent Pakistan. After 75 years of independence, there is a clear need to assess the existing social and political challenges confronted by Pakistan and identify the measures to address them in accordance with the principles and vision laid out by the guide. Ladies and gentlemen, the seminar aims to do just that by bringing together subject experts who have deep insight into various aspects of Jinnah's life. The discussion will provide a nuanced look into the Pakistan that tried wanted to create and the Pakistan that has emerged. It is hoped that the discourse will help in identifying solutions for our country's current dilemmas from Jinnah's vision and political action. Ladies and gentlemen, our keynote speaker for the seminar is Senator Javed Jabbar. Senator Javed Jabbar will be speaking on Pakistan's vision. Senator Javed Jabbar has served in 3 federal cabinets as Minister for Information and Broadcasting, Science and Technology, Petroleum and Natural Resources, and as an advisor to Chief Executive of Pakistan on national affairs. Senator Jabbar has authored numerous books and frequently speaks on national history, current affairs, and political economy. So without any further delay, I would request Senator Javed Jabbar to address the audience. Please, sir.
Bismillah ar-Rahman Rahim. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Marshal Farhat, Sahab, for your gracious invitation. And thanks to the whole CAF team. The video and the preliminary part of today's seminar is indicative of the very distinct role that CAF is already defining for itself. And even though I don't have the privilege of physically being with you and meeting you face to face, I'm aware that the persons present in the seminar are individuals of distinction in their respective fields, and I'm sure whether they speak or whether they listen patiently to intruders like myself, they will contribute to a better appreciation that is hopefully an appraisal rather than full of adulation alone, because the Faiz, a great man that he was, virtually unrivaled in that century and perhaps even in this one, is far too much an idol that we hang on the wall and we use multiple adjectives to describe his achievements. In that process, we tend to sometimes overlook the fact that he was also a human being, and that sometimes he may have made judgments or decisions that bear re-examination, which should not affect the respect and the admiration that we have for him, but only to stress that whether it is about a single individual like the Faiz, or whether it is history in general, whether it is Pakistan's history in specific terms, there is no such thing as a conclusive point at which we can say that we have determined the truth. We know about dates, when someone was born, when someone passed away, when our independence came, when we lost East Pakistan. But dates are only incidental. More important are the themes, the layers, the multiple factors that interact with each other, between how one individual looks at a given subject and how that individual hopefully or does not change the course of history. And today we are concerned with one man synonymous with Pakistan, which is not to deflect from the enormous contributions made by his colleagues and by those who had unstinted faith in him. but he became the single supreme symbol of all that we were aspiring to be at that time, long before all of us who are present here today were even born. Because when one looks at his life in the context of the subject, I've been asked to reflect on Jinnah's vision of Pakistan and its future trajectory. One is struck by the fact that his vision of Pakistan evolved over several decades before even the word Pakistan was invented in 1933 by the much forgotten Chaudhry Ahmad, whose life in turn deserves far greater study, and it has been done justice to by our eminent late historian, Mr. K.K. Aziz. But even before that, when Allama Iqbal spoke of Muslim majority homeland in South Asia 1930, we find that Mr. Jinnah's concept of what Muslims were or should be did not begin with the pronouncement of 1930, 1933, or the Lahore Resolution of 1940, up to which time even he had not used the word Pakistan. It had been in existence for several years. But it began much earlier. I strongly recommend to you for your consideration, I'm sure you have already looked at it, a very unusual compilation of his speeches in the period 1910 to 1918. And these are titled Rare Speeches by the Muhammad Ali Jinnah, compiled and edited by Mr. Muhammad Umar, published by the Al Mahfuz Research Academy in Karachi in 1973. They are really worth looking at, because those were 8 tumultuous years in the history of the world, not just of South Asia. We were on the edge of the First World War. Colonialism was at its zenith, and even the combatant parties of the First World War, Germany was a potent colonial leader. European colonialism was rampant across Asia and Africa in particular. But Mr. Jinnah's vision for the emancipation of Muslims in particular and of South Asian people in general was very deep-rooted. When you look at, for example, his speech made in 1912 to the Imperial Legislative Council, it rings a remarkable chord with Pakistan 110 years later in 2022. What does he have to say? Speaking on the elementary education bill, he strongly condemns the unwillingness of the British government to make elementary education compulsory, because they are hedging and hawing. They're saying we don't have the money, or we should do it phase by phase. Why should we rush into something and commit ourselves which we cannot fulfill? And Mr. Jinnah articulates in so passionate and so forceful a way the case for making elementary education compulsory. 1912. And he's saying if you don't do it, it will take 175 years. 175 years for all children in South Asia. And by South Asia, I mean, of course, what is today's India and Pakistan and Bangladesh, to go to complete primary school, elementary school. 175 years. And he's calculated and he says it will take 600 years for all girls to complete their elementary and primary education. Look at the vision of the man. And look at the vision of the man in the context of Pakistan in 2022, when we have the dubious honor of having about 20 million children still out of school. That was true be a vision for Pakistan, that the word had not been invented. And it's not just a one-off. 5 years later, speaking in the same council on primary education, again, Mr. Jinnah reinforces that. And I would urge you even to also look at another great speaker, the AIML, you know, the Lucknow speech that he made as president of the All India Muslim League session. I mean, it's a speech of literature. People, and I speak of literature because there are a few skeptics in Pakistan who complain that Mr. Jinnah actually never defined his vision for Pakistan in the form of a book. And they cite Mr. Nehru's discovery of India and other leaders who actually wrote books. But when you look at his statements and his speeches on a wide range of subjects, internal, regional, religious, international, over a 42-year period, 42 years in 1948 when he passed away, those speeches and statements constitute not one, but several books. And they show how this gentleman was a remarkable combination of clarity as well as the scope for change. He combined firmness and determination with, at the same time, willingness to be pragmatic and flexible. He was not obstinate. He was not insisting on something which was, let us say, absurd. He would not say that it is daylight when he knew it was night. So when it was time to change his stance on separate electorates, he changed his stance. Initially, he opposed separate electorates because he said all people of that time, all citizens are equal. So why should Muslims, or why should Dalits or scheduled castes have separate reserved seats? But when we realized that the Muslims would be at an inherent disadvantage unless they had the access to separate and specific representation, he changed his stance. Now, when I look at the subject and I say future trajectory, one temptation is to look at what we did with his vision in our first 75 years. But you are already very well versed with it. And I don't want to add to that. I don't think I would have much to add to it. So let us look at the fact or the prospect of the next 75 years. We know what happened in the past 75 years. And in my humble opinion, for equity, because equity was a very basic cardinal principle of Mr. Jinnah's thinking and his political aspect. Equity, which is perhaps a more embracing word than justice, which we normally associate with either sports or, of course, with economic and social justice. But four equities would be political equity, gender equity, institutional equity, and social equity. And when one talks about his vision and Pakistan's future, we look at how he evolved the concept of separate electorates to reach a higher level of self-determination for Muslims. He didn't just stop at separate electorates and became contented with having some quota of seats in this council or this legislature. He realized that the concept of self-determination, as enunciated with the League of Nations and thereafter in the United Nations, which was to come later, had to become part of the demand for not only creating a framework for Muslims, which has not been clearly worked out, but ultimately a homeland, self-determination. And that is why the Lahore Resolution is probably deliberately vague and evasive, because he was still thinking through. And when I say he, I mean it on a collective basis. He and his colleagues were not quite sure Where will Pakistan be located? Of course, the Muslim majority areas is a given, but that is the reason why there are 5 to 6 different terms used in the Lahore Resolution for territory, unit, province, state, region, because of the deliberate strategy of imposition, of allowing for evolution. And look at his far-sightedness. People, of course, rightly think he made a gross error of judgment in March 1948 when he goes to Dhaka and says that Urdu will be the sole state language. But it is very tragically forgotten that the same man had the vision in 1947, 4 months before the creation of Pakistan. He becomes the only non-Bengali political leader of South Asia who gives unqualified support to the proposal by Mr. Hussain in April-May 1947 that there should be a single, undivided, united, sovereign, independent Bengal, separate from Pakistan. Mr. Jinnah is the only leader who supports it. And in fact, he writes to Lord Mountbatten, and Lord Mountbatten seeks his opinion. He says, I would be delighted, let them be independent. He foresees that it will be very difficult to enable 2 wings of the world's most possibly awkwardly constructed nation state in all of history, 1,000 miles separate from each other, to become eventually cohesive, given all the difficulties, which we then fulfilled in great measure. So, political equity for the Bengali Muslims, recognizing that Bengali Muslim nationalism was at the forefront of the Pakistan movement. And political equity also reflected in his posture of modernism. Political equity not seeking to revive a primeval, outmoded, archaic past, but looking at the future. So he decides to go against the wind and resist all the arguments for the Khilafat movement, alienates, antagonizes the major Muslim leaders, but he doesn't care. He believes that the Khilafat movement is no longer relevant to the 20th century. And then comes 1947, 48, 46 to 47. Look at the political equities that he creates, forges in the seat of opposition by the Congress, the British, and at least six not insignificant fellow Muslim forces. Utter irony that here is a man asking for Muslims' right to self-determination, to independence, and there are 6 major fellow Muslim forces strongly opposing the creation of Pakistan. The Jamiatul-Ulama-e-Hind, the Jamaat-e-Islami, Allama Mashriqi Khalsa movement, the Unionist Party of Punjab, Abdul Ghaffar Khan and his Red Church, and several Muslims who were not political but who didn't want to leave their part of South Asia and migrate to the new promised land. And he overcomes them because he knows that the concept, the ideal of political equity for Muslims can only be achieved through an independent sovereign state. And that's the kind of equity that we need to revive and strengthen for the future. And it's easy to be prescriptive, but one would suggest that political equity for Pakistan in the next 75 years can only come about if we conduct major electoral reforms to truly make our political system a representative democracy. At the moment, it is a mockery of a representative democracy, where 50% of the people don't vote, and of those who vote, 20% who win 15 to 20% of the cast vote manage to become rulers for 5 years. So that's an absurdity. You should follow what 24 other countries of the world do and make voting compulsory. This is just what Mr. Jinnah wanted in the case of education. In the case of separate elections, he wanted the compulsory mandatory aspect to be an instrument in reshaping the whole community, the whole nation's destiny. And it can be done because unless we undertake these major steps over the next decade, it will not be possible to fulfill this. The second equity is more easily said. It doesn't need elaboration, but gender equity. Women, mashallah. Today in Pakistan, they are far more visible, far more associated. There are women in this very seminar, articulate, educated women, a far cry from what we were in 1947. You can truly take pride in how women in Pakistan have advanced. And yet, what he said in Aligarh in 1944, before the creation of Pakistan, about the need to take women with you side by side, there can be no fulfillment of our ideals. Still rings true today. We have amongst the most shameful statistics, apart from being at an abysmally low level of the Human Development Index, we are at 142 out of 160. Shameful. As one of 9 nuclear powers and not able to do basic justice to our human development. We have the highest maternal mortality rate in South Asia. At one time, we were supposed to be far ahead of Nepal, far ahead of Bhutan or whatever. Today, this is the status of women in Pakistan, still deprived of their basic fundamental rights to health and to dignity of decision making. So, what do we do for them? Again, this will be an idealistic proposal, but all ideals have to be stated in order to save them and make them into reality. Is, for example, as part of electoral reform, 1/3 of all directly elected seats in all legislatures should be reserved only for women candidates, so that over a period of 4 elections, every district, every constituency in the country, at every level, in every level, has the right to vote for women. To put an end to this system of reserved seats. It is good, an excellent reform that General Musharraf brought in and vastly increased, and one is humbly proud to be part of that initiative for that time. But we need women to be directly representative of the people of Pakistan in the spirit that Mr. Jinnah conceived. The third is institutional equity. The need to respect his vision, to remind the officers and ranks of the armed forces of the sanctity and reverence of this oath that they take must be respected. And equally, our civil services at every level, which unfortunately have become very bloated, overblown, many ways redundant. I hate to be cynical, but one is tempted to share this quote by a very astute analyst with regard to a particular province which shall remain unnamed. After deep study, you observe that if you abolish the entire Department of Education in this particular province, it will make absolutely no difference to the quality of education. In fact, it will improve rather than deteriorate. Now, that's the kind of redundancy the bureaucracy has achieved. It's not to demean its competence, but simply to say there is a need for equilibrium of institutional growth and equity, the way Mr. Jinnah would visualize it, and it ties equally to the judiciary, overstepping its say is social equity. And I will conclude with this. And what does one mean by social equity? I take inspiration from Mr. Jinnah's commitment to balance, even-handedness, never becoming excessive, vituperative, abusive, exercising tremendous dignity and restraint, and yet saying what he meant, very forcefully, balance, tawazun, most of all in population growth. We are such masters at becoming the most productive of baby making amongst all major Muslim countries. I'm not being presumptuous if I say that Mr. Jinnah would have been devastated if he realized, when he realized, or he came to know, in 2022, Pakistan produces more children than it can care for, while all other countries, including the country right next to us, where a single unelected Ayatollah can veto an elected parliament, has managed to dramatically bring down its population growth rate. We are still heading to a very grim 350 million people by the end of this century, and much earlier before that, much more. And social equity also means the austerity that Mr. Jinnah practiced, which was not miserliness. He was not a miser. He gave liberally, generously, but he was austere. We have gone and spoiled ourselves thoroughly. The civil service, the military services, the corporate sector, private citizens, my God, we love showing off our SUVs, our houses, our weddings. I mean, a country sinking in debt and its leading institutional cadres floating around in these luxury vehicles. This would have been unacceptable to Mr. Jinnah. So that is the vision that I presume to have. The people of Pakistan at the moment are far ahead of the leadership. In 11 general elections, they have never voted for a single religion-based party. They are so balanced and mature. They're waiting for the leadership to catch up with Mr. Jinnah's vision. Thank you very much for your patience.
Thank you, sir. Indeed, Mr. Jinnah became the symbol of the aspiration of Muslim nation, both of the past and of the future. His vision was never defined in a book, but it was clearly evident that concepts like self-determination and political equity were central components of this vision. Ladies and gentlemen, the next speaker for today is Professor Dr. Riaz Ahmad. He will be speaking on Jinnah's struggle, brief account of his political journey and case for Pakistan. Dr. Riaz Ahmad is currently serving as the president of Anjuman Faiz-ul-Islam. He has previously served as Professor Qayyadin Chair and as Director, National Institute of Historical and Cultural Research, Qayyadin University. He has authored 50 books, 30 of which are on Qayyadin Muhammad Ali Jinnah. He is a member of a number of national and international academic bodies and is a member of Board of Governors of various institutes. I request Dr. Riaz to tell us.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. First of all, I'm highly obliged to Air Marshal Farhat that he has invited me on this very important seminar attended by a number of prominent personalities from the Air Force and from other areas. And it is a pleasure for me to speak for only 15 minutes. Then followed by my friends Dr. Chawla answer session. But only briefly touch Faiz life. Specifically, if you want me to speak on any question, then I will go to the details. Muhammad Ali Jinnah, as you know, was a great leader, founder of nation, founder of Pakistan state, the largest Islamic state in the world in 1947, when East Pakistan was with us. In 71, it separated because of certain reasons, but still we are happy that in the name of Bangladesh, it has not merged in India. Bangladesh has kept it as Muslim identity and progressing as democratic state. Pakistan, the remaining Pakistan, old West Pakistan, we see, if we quote in the words of Iqbal in his address on 29th December 1930, Allahabad, that I want to propose a Muslim state consisting of 4 provinces of northwestern India: Sindh, Punjab, and Uliapli, now KP, and Hussain. Later on, Iqbal agreed to include Bengal and Assam also. If we study the guy's life, we can divide his life into 4 or 5 phases according to my research. First phase, as you know from his birth in 76 is 1896. This is the period when he was studied at Faiz-ul-Islam and Christian Mission High School for some 6 months. Then he went to England, basically to study business law, business matters, but when his father suffered business losses, he changed his mind. He was such a man that from his childhood, he used to take the decisions and stick to them and right decisions. In that period, most of the politicians of England were advocates, lawyers. He was very much influenced by that factor. He decided to go to law, and for that purpose, he selected Lincoln's Inn. You know, in London there are 4 law colleges known as 4 inns. Why he selected Lincoln's Inn? Because our Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu name was amongst the law givers of the world, as shown in the fresco hanging in the dining hall and the library. That's why he selected Lincoln's Inn for his love for Holy Prophet. The Bharat course was spread over 3 years, but he completed within 2 years. The remaining 8 months or a year he had to wait, and during those 8 months, a British chairman of the Public Service Commission interviewed Jinnah in 1913 in Bombay. He asked him, what you have been doing during those 8 months when you were waiting for the award of degree or being called to the Bharat. He said, I have been using this time for some time studying in the British Museum. The British Library at the time was not founded. Museum was also serving the cause of library. Then certain time passing in the London High Courts, and then third is spending some time, hours and hours, in the galleries of Parliament, witnessing how the politicians argue in their debates in the Parliament. That's how we use it. Second, then he returned to Bombay in August 1896 and enrolled himself as advocate Bombay High Court. Second phase, I divided that starts from 1897 to 1920. This is the Congress period. In most of the books you must have read that Kyle started his political career in 1906. But I have proved that he started his political career in 1897. I proved that in my books. And through Jinnah's own words, when he was 30, he was asked, when did you start your political career? Jinnah's reply was, when I was 21. The Congress phase, is some people say this is the period of his growth. No, it's the period of his prominence. Playing very important role in the Congress, projecting the Muslim cause before the Hindus. His 1906 speech shows that, and he has gone to the extent of saying that if you think the Muslims are inferior to the Hindus, you are wrong. Muslims are equal to Hindus. That was his point of view. Then Musliman Waqf Validating Bill passed in 1913. Then Lucknow Pact, a great achievement, and other things. The third phase of his life starts from 1921 to 1934. In this period, I call it as a period of chaos, turmoil, confusion, because Muslim League was also divided in this period into two groups, Jinnah group, Shafi group, and Muslim, All India Muslim Conference. Congress was also divided into two parties, Swarajya Party and Congress. But still in this period, he was very prominent as he was in the previous period. You will be surprised to know two, three things I will quote. That in 1924 or 2025, when the Indian Reforms Committee was formed by the British to reform 1919 Act and go to the next reforms, Jinnah was made member of that. Then 1925 and 26, when there was, because Jinnah during the First World War, in his speeches he had advocated and pressurized the British to give commission ranks to Indians. At the time, the terminology was Indians, including both Muslims and Hindus and others. But when they say in 1925 this committee was formed, this was the Indian Senders Committee. Major Scheme perhaps was head of this committee. That's how he is also known in the area of his court as Scheme Committee. Sometimes Indian Senders Committee. In the newspapers also I've seen the newspaper all of those times. And in Jinnah's neighbor included, Nehru also was included in that, but Nehru resigned from the committee because of he was thinking that there should be no, Jinnah should not be included. But the British could not ignore Jinnah even at that time. Because of his deep interest in the defense matters, you will be surprised to know that in 1926, this committee was divided into two parts, subcommittee general and subcommittee who has to tour the important military institutions in UK, France, USA and Canada. Jinnah being head of that committee, our chief spokesman of that committee, toured all these countries and visited the British, French, American, Canadian army colleges and their schools, the training schools. And when he came here, he disagreed with the majority, the other committee. He wrote his own report to which his two colleagues agreed. And that he was so much far-sighted person that you should get at least 100 officers within 1 year. And then within 3-4 years, you should give commission to all officers of the defense forces. But the British did not agree. For 6 years or 7 years, they kept this report secret. Jinnah was demanding all the time, make it public. But they were fearing that the people may not be turning to the viewpoint of Jinnah. However, in the third phase starts from 35 to 47. This is Pakistan movement. And last phase as Governor of Pakistan, 47 to 48. In this period 35 to 47, we see Qaeda Muhammad Ali Jinnah coming forward and making secret steps in a veiled language, laying the foundations of the Muslim nation and Muslim state. If you deeply study his teaching and statements. That's why when we come to 1937 elections, it is known in the books that 25% Muslim League candidates won. And the people say the Muslim League was not so much popular at the time. I do not agree with this statement. My specific answer is, Jinnah had already understood the mind of Hindus. He was going for Pakistan. But the problem was the provincial leadership of the Muslims could not understand his message. I will give instances, NWP, AP, Punjab and Sindh. In each of these, in Punjab, there was unist party government, but NWP, RKP, or Sindh, the leaders were divided among themselves. I tried to unite them, but they could not. That's the reason. Otherwise, if you go to the election results and voting pattern of 1937 elections, you will be surprised to know that in the whole of India, Congress could win only 7 seats. And when the government was installed in KB, it was made to failure within 6 months to the Congress mechanics, and Dr. Khan Sahab was made as the chief minister in September 1937. Then we go forward. Allama Iqbal, some people think that he later on was converted, but I will say no. He already knew Iqbal because he being the president of All Muslim League since 1916 and being elected, re-elected after every 3 years. Qaid-e-Azam understood Jinnah, Allama Iqbal. That is why in July 1930, the meeting of the Council of the All Muslim League was held in New Delhi, and in that, on Qaid's advice, Allama Iqbal was nominated as the next president of what later on came to be known as Allahabad session in December 1930. But the planning of Jinnah was that the idea was just to be floated because the Congress opposition is very strong. The British are not ready to accept this. But he is going psychologically. Just idea was floated, but not a resolution was not passed. The resolution means your nation's determination to establish Pakistan. That comes after 10 years. When Jinnah had made all of India favorable to the idea of Pakistan, especially the Muslims, and made them united through his efforts, through the Lucknow session of 1937, then the dismissal of, resignation of the Congress ministries in 7 out of 11 provinces of India. And Congress was again sabotaging with the British to reinstall their governments in order to make them fail. On Qaid-e-Azam's instructions, Day of Deliverance was celebrated throughout India on 22nd December 1939. In this, the speciality of this Day of Deliverance is all the minorities of India participated. Dr. Ambedkar, who was head of the youth, he also spoke on a number of occasions on this day. And Sikhs were also with Jinnah at the time. So in this background, we see Qaid-e-Azam delivers his next step, goes to the next step, and 23rd March, and on 23rd March 1940, he gave Pakistan resolution without giving it a name of Pakistan. He was planning that Hindu press will automatically come to Pakistan. That's what the next day's newspaper you see, all headlines. This is Jinnah's Pakistan, quote unquote. That was how Jinnah's planning was working. And then in these years we see, before this he had, when the Second World War started in August or September 1939, the Viceroy invited Gandhi, Nehru, Jinnah to support them in the war effort. Gandhi and Nehru pressurized that if the British put the Congress people in charge of all defense matters and promised to hand over power to them by ignoring the Muslims and other all minorities, the British were not ready for this. And Jinnah, when he was contacted, ready support were provided. After the end of the war, the new settlement, constitutional settlement is made with consultation with the Muslim leaders, Muslim nation, and other minorities. And you will be surprised to know Jinnah at that time saying, putting conditions to the Viceroy that you should not send your forces to the other Muslim countries at that time. People think that he was weak. No, he was a very strong man. And if you guess, he wrote to Viceroy putting 4 conditions that as soon as Sarkar may permit or immediately after the war, the entire problem of India's future constitution, apart from the Government of India Act 1935, shall be examined and reconsidered de novo. Latin terminology. Second, that no declaration shall either in principle or otherwise, Jinnah was so much specific in his language, be made or any constitution be enacted by His Majesty's government or the Parliament without the approval and the consent of 2 major communities of India, the Muslims and Hindus. Third, His Majesty's government should try and meet all reasonable national demands of the Arabs in Palestine. He was looking at the whole Muslim world at the time. 39. That the Indian troops will not be used outside India against any Muslim power or country. Then even 39, Jinnah was putting his condition like a strong man, and Viceroy agreed. And then when he prepared the British also, the Muslim nation galvanized, then he goes to Pakistan Resolution on March. Then for a number of years we see the British try to convince Jinnah or to integrate him through dialogues with various commissions and British men and the Congress leaders, but they all failed. For example, Great Commission 42, they failed. Then Gandhi was, when Gandhi, 44, Gandhi-Jinnah talks, Gandhi went to such an extent in those talks. And let me tell you, Viceroy Gandhi wrote his telegram to Jinnah from the confinement. He was being kept under confinement, not jail, in the Al Khan Palace, Bombay. There he wrote telegram in 43, but the British intelligence agency kept it secret and conveyed it to Jinnah in next year when Jinnah was in Kashmir. He was asked what is your action. He said, no, I will not give my comments unless I come in direct contact with Gandhi. He was so careful. Then Gandhi, he was informed. Gandhi wrote him that Jinnah should come to his ashram. He said, no, I will not come there. Then Gandhi was forced to come to Jinnah's house at Malabar Heights, Bombay, in September 1944. Long-based discussion, then followed by correspondence. In minutest details, even such an extent was that you, in the Lahore resolution, you have mentioned the autonomous word with because of the Muslim majority provinces. What do you mean by? He said, this is the states, plural words, states he has used. He said this has been used in the American terminology, where the states are functioning as provinces. He explained that. Gandhi came to show that I accept your right, Pakistan, but first of all we should get freedom from India, from the British. Then after all we will settle. I said, no, I have no faith in you. First Pakistan will be created and then India will be. That was Jinnah's determination. And on that basis, further talks were held in Shimla Conference, known in the books as Shimla Conference, June, July 1945. In those also, they tried to convince Jinnah to come to, and they became ready even to 40% Muslim, and sometime, but Jinnah's demand was 50%. Hindus, 50% Muslim, equal to Hindus. They did not act. Then they forcefully had to go to elections, 45, 46 elections. And in the election, 90% seats were against the Muslim seats. Muslim League members were they elected. Then interim government, cabinet mission plan, interim government, and then in that the basic issue, Jinnah went for the basic issue that you, before creation of Pakistan, you will have to create a separate Pakistan Constituent Assembly. What assembly had been elected on 1345, this is Indian country. This is not Pakistan. Pakistan consisting of the members from the 6 Muslim majority provinces, 4 West Pakistan and 2 East Pakistan. That was his stance. Good. Then we go to the next issue, that on the situation in Bihar becomes very critical. Thousands of Muslims were killed there. And this, as a reaction to that, we see in the Muslim majority areas, there was reaction. As we are sitting in Rawalpindi, Islamabad, we see reaction in Chawla. The Viceroy himself, Paul Winter, himself had to come there. He came here, then he stayed in the command house. At the time, it was known as command house. And then the next morning, he went to Chawla, visualized the situation and came back. The situation Qaidism has created in such a way that the Muslims were ready to fight us by building up the Muslim National Guards. And the British realized that we should now, by the turn of 47, they realized that we will have to give Jinnah or accept his demand in whatever manner we could do. Otherwise, there is going to be civil war in India. Jinnah directed the events in such a way that the British were forced to come to terms with Jinnah. That's how Mountbatten comes on 22nd March 1947. And Jinnah was, you will be surprised to know that when Mountbatten comes here, he was advised how to tackle Jinnah. I have seen a number of documents in the British Library and formerly India Library. The title, even Gandhi wrote 2 pages, how to tackle Jinnah. Even 3 pages, Nehru wrote, how to tackle Jinnah, advising Mountbatten. क्या कायदेज़म को चिन्ह है? उनके लिए चिन्ह बना हुआ है. This is a great thing. And you will try to know, but he joins as Viceroy, relieving Wewell on 22nd March 1947. But he meets Jinnah not immediately on 5th and 6th April, then followed up. asked him two questions. One is, Mr. Jinnah, on 5th April, why you are demanding Pakistan, which the constitutions think it is vivisection of their mother cow? Jinnah's reply was, my lord, when Burma was separated from India in 1932, was not that vivisection of mother cow? And second question, Viceroy could not express his consent or consent. He, in his evening report to the India office, said, I could not answer anything. Then second question was, Mr. Jinnah, you are demanding a Pakistan, even if it's created. But although they are different countries, but still there will be a lot of similarities between the two countries. Can you name any country in the world where there are certain things and similarities and still they are different countries? You will be surprised to know what's happened. My lord, I can name many countries. Guy's style was he used to answer the question, counter question manner. He asked Mountbatten, what do you think of USA and Canada? Mountbatten is an evening report wrote, I could not answer. That's how the talks began. And then Mountbatten finally agreed on the third June plan, partition plan. And it was thought with the Congress, Jinnah and Nehru and Gandhi, that Pakistan, if it will be created, and Lord Mountbatten will be made as a common Governor General of both India and Pakistan, and we create in such a truncated manner that within some months, under the Act 35, the Viceroy will reunite India. Qaeda kept silent, but only in the Muslim League Council meeting on 29th and 23rd, and on 30th, Muslim League decided to nominate Jinnah as the acting next Pakistan first Governor General. Liaqat Ali Khan wrote letter conveying to Mountbatten on 2nd July 47 that our nominee is Muhammad Ali Jinnah as the first Governor General of Pakistan. And then we go next, Indian Independence Act was passed, and then Mountbatten at the meeting of the first constitution by Jinnah wrote a number of warnings and letters that hold the meeting of Pakistan's Constituent Assembly. It was on that pressure that on 10th August, Pakistan Constituent Assembly's first meeting was held, and followed by up to 14th August. On 13th, Mountbatten was asked to come to Karachi. He came. 14th, he transferred power to Jinnah as the president of the first Constituent Assembly. That's how Pakistan came into being. Then the Governor General, I believe, because I have been asked to conclude, the last thing which I would like to say, as Governor General, he guided the nation and the state, the Pakistani matter, in almost all matters. If you ask me the question, then I will answer you the question of those things. My friend Chawla is also there. He will also add to what I have said. And with this, I thank you very much. Khuda Hafiz.
Of Kai's political journey and his political wisdom. Ladies and gentlemen, the next speaker for today is Dr. Iqbal Chawla, who will be speaking on Pakistan's current challenges and Jinnah's relevance. Professor Dr. Muhammad Iqbal Chawla served as Dean, Faculty of Arts and Humanities, and also the Dean, Faculty of Law at the University of Punjab, Lahore.
He has published numerous research articles in national and international research journals, along with 5 books. His book, Wavell and the Dying Days of the Raj, published by Oxford University Press, was awarded Best Book Publication Award in 2013 by AGC Pakistan. I request Dr. Javed to please address the audience.
President Cass and Marshal, my dear respected teacher, Dr. Riaz, colleagues, friends, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum. When you already heard from Senator Javed Jabbar and authority on Faiz-ul-Islam Muhammad Ali Jinnah, Dr. Riaz, I feel myself very little to say something. Though whatever I wanted to say, they already have explained. And I will try to be brief as I can. But still, being a teacher who have been teaching for 4 decades, it is difficult to concise and precise. So my apology in advance if I prolong my speech. Those very short speech. Today I'm going to touch upon the unparalleled internal and external challenges faced by Pakistan and relevance of Jinnah's oft-spoken words in the numerous speeches and public statements. What are we all facing at the present? I will let the guide speak through his own words, uttered about 8 or so decades ago, about our current national scenario, but which are still relevant today because the situation seems now far worse. That is because we have mostly failed to safeguard the freedoms and taken an endless series of wrong turns in every sphere of life and thus totally shunted the spirit which led to the creation of Pakistan out of our lives. As the time, due to the technological changes, Pakistan has become ever more compressed and other nations have moved forward. We have lost, though I am hopeful, temporarily, nearly all the freedoms for which our valiant ancestors had fought, for all the promises for which they had worked hard against a much larger opposition, lie shattered, and the results are obvious. Now, let's talk about Pakistan's contemporary challenges. There are numerous challenges, internal and external. Internal challenges, it's very notorious: corruption, nepotism, bribery. Of course, overpopulation already have been mentioned. Literacy rate, national integration, poverty, inflation, radicalization, and more importantly, Kashmir issue as well. All these problems can be said to be primarily or mostly of our own making. And that has led to the strengthening of centrifugal forces, as mentioned, the separation of East Pakistan, strengthened by powerful and resourceful international state, led internal mafias in all sectors of life. Now the bipolarism seems to be replacing multipolarism. And there you see the emergence of China as growing economic power, emergence of USSR, Germany. Of course, India is also emerging as regional power. So the Cold War era is replacing with these new phenomena, but still the US seems to be the superpower. What has gone wrong is Pakistan is surrounded by, on one hand, to the east, India. Like my mentor has already shared with you, when Lord Mountbatten was telling, okay, take Pakistan, and convincing Gandhi, Patel and Nehru, and what he was saying that it is going to be a political liberation. And you will see within few days, Jinnah would come back and would be entreating for the reunification. And he was absolutely upset and wrong. Jinnah proved him wrong. So still we see, on the western border, you see that Afghanistan, our brother neighborly country, so changed so much, is unpredictable and more unreliable, though we have sacrificed so much. So these kind of, challenges are there. I hardly will be speaking on them, so therefore I'm just giving you. This can surge your political changes in region and globally have become a necessity for us, or we will be crushed. This can only be done by raising a new generation steeped deeply with the ideas of 1947, as primarily spelled out by the Quaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah, a few of whose extracts are quoted below for just another reminder. So therefore I will be giving you more quotes than explanation. Sorry for that as well. Already Senator Jabbar sir, but my teacher already have explained how the two-nation theory created a Muslim nationalism, and how and why Jinnah demanded a separate homeland for the Muslims. So it was not just, it did not happen like this. There was, political, social, economic evolution of thought which passed by the Muslim, especially the makers of Pakistan, or more particularly Quaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah. So what kind of Pakistan he wanted to see, envisage? That is my topic, the vision of Jinnah's. There is popular debate still going on, and probably will continue to carry on, whether Jinnah was a secular or Islamist. Or when Lord Mountbatten was handing over power to Jinnah, he was saying, oh, you should follow the footsteps of Akbar the Great instead of Aurangzeb. And Jinnah said, my Lord, let me tell you that the 1300 years ago, my Holy Prophet has given us a charter, has set us the principles. So we are more in that sense secular than you wanted to suggest. So Jinnah, to my mind, was neither a secular nor a narrow-minded religious bygone, but a progressive and moderate Muslim who believed strictly in the rule of law without special preferences for any individual or group. Then Senator Saab already explained how Jinnah believed in democracy, Western democracy. Let me remind you that Pakistan was created through electoral process. Dr. Saab already has mentioned in 1937. And the Muslim League was the single largest party who won the election. And still was, his big achievement was, try to malign it. Then in 45-46 election, Jinnah proved that his case for Pakistan is strong when the Muslim, 80-90% Muslim voted in favor of partition of India and the creation of Pakistan. But that is not the end even then. Then he said, no, if Muslim majority provinces wanted to join Pakistan, once again they should come forward and vote for it. So once again, through free will, Pakistan was created. But that kind of yardstick was not adopted with regarding the Bharat, India. So Jinnah strictly believed that democracy and Western democracies through electoral process would be the future of Pakistan, and he also believed in the republican form of government. Qaeda-ism and theocracy. I already have mentioned Lord Mountbatten had fears, and he was not wrong as well, because the Pakistan movement was also supported by ulama, Sufis, moderate Sufis or extreme Sufis, whatever. But luckily, those who were extreme religious sermon or scholars, they were not in favor of Pakistan. But still the propaganda was going on that Pakistan is going to become a theocratic state, which means only the nominated ulama, the Maulvis, would rule Pakistan. And Jinnah categorically, like Iqbal also had already said that. He said Pakistan is not going to become a theocratic state. That is why he stressed on the democracy, popular vote. Then there is the concept of the welfare state, which is very popular in the West and also being popularized by Imran Khan Saab. Before that, many other political leaders or rulers. But Jinnah had his own vision. And he said that the new Muslim state will be a true welfare state based on principles of Islamic social justice with equal rights for all citizens. Jinnah stated on the 27th Ramzan 1947, I quote, "It is your sacred duty to look after the poor and help them. We must secure for them better living conditions." Unquote. He had the concept or the role model of Riyasat-e-Madina. That is a dilemma as well, that still we are searching to become a Riyasat-e-Madina of Hazrat Umar Anhu's model. Qaeda-ism and the religious minorities already have been said that. But let me handle this in a different way. Like Dr. told you that Day of Deliverance was celebrated, the religious minorities of India, including untouchables and Sikhs. Probably at that time the Lahore Resolution was not passed. After the Lahore Resolution, the religious minorities of India se malum thi, which is debatable as well, that Pakistan is going to become a fundamentalist mulk or country. So therefore it was difficult to take them on board. Nonetheless, in the Lahore resolution, you can see Jinnah is promising equal rights for all citizens of Pakistan. Then you see, when in the capital plan, the entire government is set up and 5 seats are reserved for the Muslims. Then Jinnah, before that, like you have mentioned, sir, before that, in the Javed plan and the first Simla conference, Jinnah was not ready to surrender even a single seat or to let any other person to nominate and recommend the minister. Here, Jinnah did the same thing while the talks were going on. But when it came to nominate or to propose the ministers, he proposed a Hindu, Javed, not Muhammad. That is how he presented the future of Pakistan, a future or vision of Pakistan, what kind of Pakistan it will be for the religious minorities. Then after, of course, after the creation of Pakistan, he once again nominated him and he became minister. But look at the secular approach of Gandhi or the Congress at that time, so-called the secular. They were not ready to nominate any Muslim minister before the Muslim League joined the interim government. They had included Maulana Abul Kalam Azad and 2 other people. The moment Muslim League stepped in, joined the interim government, they removed Maulana Azad even. What else is the two nation theory then? What else is the so-called secularism, what you see today as BJP, in the shape of BJP? The seeds were there always. Jinnah said about minorities, I quote, they will have their protection with regard to their religion, faith, life and culture. They will be citizens of Pakistan without any distinction of caste or creed, unquote. Obviously, Jinnah referred to Misaki Medina or Pectum Medina of Holy Prophet. Then the kind and the political supremacy, already have mentioned that Jinnah believed in democracy today, and for 7 decades there is conflict of going on civil and military relationship. But Jinnah's vision was very clear. He wanted that political issues cannot be settled on by knife or gun. Pakistan was created through ballots. He advocated civilian supremacy in state affairs. In Quetta, in his speech, he argued, do not forget that the armed forces are the servants of the people. You do not make national policy. It is we, the civilians, who decide these issues, and it is your duty to carry out these tasks with which you are interested, unquote. Jinnah, like Sir also has mentioned, probably separation of power. And Jinnah proposed separation of power in the Lucknow Pact. Look at it, 1916, why he knew the American Revolution. The framer of American Revolution proposed the separation of power for the state machinery. And he wanted to carry out that. Now, the case is very clear for you that what's going on in Pakistan, that's different from Jinnah's vision. The Qaeda and the economy, like I already have said that, there are so many studies were made in 1940s to prove that the proposed Pakistan will not survive for a longer period because of economy. Only they were mentioned that Balochistan had some reservoirs, natural reservoirs. And they were saying that if Punjab and Bengal is divided, hardly Pakistan can survive for a few months, years. Otherwise, it's not sustainable. But Jinnah, once again I will say, proved wrong. Jinnah said, I have no doubt in my mind about the bright future that awaits Pakistan, when its vast resources of men and material are fully mobilized. Jinnah stood for the development of industry along with agriculture. He wished to give the economy an industrial base. Industrialization itself was conceived as the key to self-reliance and independence. In order to reach the goals of economic freedom, corruption, very popular. All politicians are corrupt. If you look at the lower level, bottom to top, or top to bottom, first as a teacher are not, pessimistic. But sometimes I really feel that something is wrong with our nation. It's not only the politician or the rulers or the elite class. Now that disease is so infected, everybody probably. But still I believe that corruption, what Jinnah has noticed in 1945-46, he blamed educated and intelligentsia and declared them selfish and morally and intellectually corrupt. And that we inherited that kind of, epidemic, whatever you say, though pandemic, because say was done by the British. They looted everything from India. But how to curb it? Still, that is our biggest challenge. How to eliminate corruption? Qaeda and education already have Senator Jabbar has explained it. To me, education is not merely about gaining knowledge and mastering science and technology and control of information. It is also concerned with the nation's beliefs about the culture and civilization and value education, which simultaneously represents the nation's past, present and future. Jinnah said, I quote, when you have got the light of knowledge using education, and when you have made yourself strong economically and industrially, then you have got to prepare yourself for your defense against external aggression and maintain internal security. The Qaeda and austerity already have mentioned. Everybody knows how honest Jinnah was. And he made very clear distinction between public's money and personal purse. And did not waste a single penny. He refused to entertain the fresh penny in the official meetings. And sent back the chef which was brought from Lahore to Quetta, Shaza, for his cooking with the food which he liked, cooked by the chef. Jinnah said, no, this is about public money. He gave money and returned ticket from his own pocket. That is the conduct and character Jinnah, presented. And that is the role model, that is why. And look at the austerity here in our governments and high-level meetings. Jinnah and Qaeda and the foreign relations already have been mentioned side or become satellite, whatever is very strong word though. When we become a part of one camp or the other and receive aid, our sovereignty is compromised. Then Jinnah says Pakistan is going to become Islamic State. He mentioned so many times, Dr. Jabbar already has said, and he also wished to see Pakistan playing an important role in the Islamic world and the United Nations organization. He wished to see friendly relations with India, Afghanistan, China, and European countries. He had no grudges, even though Pakistan was not given, it was taken. He had no grudges. He wanted to champion the cause of the Muslim liberation, and luckily Pakistan played an important role in the liberation of so many Islamic countries. Even in the case of Azerbaijan recently, or Bosnia, etc., better. Now, Qaeda-e-Azam and the armed forces. Pakistan's armed forces, including Army, Navy and Air Force, has contributed selflessly for the defense of Pakistan. Pakistan has fought 3 wars with India and also war on terror to defend Pakistan from its enemies. Probably Air Force has been striking forces as it showed in 1965 war and recent countering Indian airstrike of 2021. According to Jinnah, I quote, "You, along with other forces of Pakistan, are the custodians of the life, property and honor of the people. The defense forces are the most vital of all Pakistan's services, and correspondingly, a very heavy responsibility and burden lies on your shoulders." Unquote. He further added that now you have to stand guard over the development and maintenance of Islamic democracy, Islamic social justice, and the equality of manhood in your own native soil. Because, Indian Muslims played vital role in the first and the second World War. But they were not rewarded as the Sikhs are being rewarded. I have seen abroad, especially in Britain, how the Sikh soldiers, their forefathers played an important role. They are being rewarded by the crown. I would conclude now. In short, Jinnah thought Pakistan to be an inclusive and impartial government with religious freedom, rule of law, and equality for all. For Jinnah, the creation of a state of our own was a means to an end, and not the end in itself. The idea was that we should have a state in which we could live and act as free men, and which we could develop according to our own lives and culture, where principle of Islamic social justice could find free play. Unquote. Therefore, Jinnah promised equal rights to all citizens, including the religious minorities, marginalized groups in the society, marginalized groups including transgenders and all that stuff. Let me acknowledge, since this is a function organized by the Air Force, it is essential to place it as this country's most important first strike force against serious cross-border threat to our integrity. But having said that, it is essential for our defense that we struggle day and night towards achieving self-sufficiency in our basic needs of defense, especially the Air Force. All good news that we hear gives us encouragement that our eagles are ready round the clock to perform their duties. Thank you very much, everyone.
I now invite President CAS, Air Marshal Farhat to deliver his concluding remarks. Please, sir.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Honorable panelists, sorry, Senator Javed is not online, he had to go. Dr. Riaz, an authority on Qaid, written 30 books on Qaid, and we are fortunate to have him around. Dr. Iqbal, Chawla, in fact, they have a very close relationship of student-instructor relationship. So this is a panel that is rich with knowledge on Qaid. Dear guests, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of Center for Aerospace and Security Studies, my profound thanks to all of you for being here this morning for a subject so important for us as a nation. If you were to continue the whole day, the questions would keep coming. It is that important. Muhammad Ali Jinnah was one of the most charismatic leaders of the recent history, if there is one trait to be seen. We were very fortunate to have him as a leader for creation of a nation state. But unfortunately, we lost him too early. It is probably appropriate to conclude that without Muhammad Ali Jinnah, the history of the subcontinent would have been different. And also, it is appropriate to conclude that if Allah had given him some more time to lead the nation, the history of Pakistan may have been different. Her early departure, I think, diverted us away from his vision to the level that our rulers and leaders alike used his thoughts with their own interpretation. Therefore, we were discussing earlier before coming to the hall, we lack an authenticated vision of Qaid which is state-owned with leadership as well as governance qualities and guidelines given by the Qaid. It is enough to say that he wanted to build institutions, and if he had lived, he could have built few. So on. Actually, as there are a lot of things that come out of this today, and I want to quote one thing that Dr. Chawla said. I think Dr. Chawla said that the word states used in the Pakistan resolution is as states is in the connotation of as in USA, like the provinces. After fall of East Pakistan, it was being interpreted some columns differently, that he probably aimed 2 states. No, he did not aim. It was very clear that states meant provinces, as said by the Honorable Speaker. Therefore, by leaving or not following the vision of the Qaid, we stand divided and polarized. Therefore, to remind ourselves with our forefathers' vision, CAS as a think tank studies and recommends policies on national security. As part of our annual activity, we are arranging 2 seminars annually. One on kites and versi, and the second one on Muhammad Iqbal on Iqbal Day. The aim is to educate ourselves and the next generation that is also represented here equally, and we are also planning to have 2 corners at our library equipped with all the books on these 2 personalities. Qaid's Corner would be inshallah inaugurated by Dr. Saab today. I hope this humble effort can serve as a reminder and source of motivation. With all the ills that we keep talking, I hope we can manage some motivation to be good Pakistanis and contribute positively wherever we are and wherever we can. With that, I thank you all. Thank you, Dr. Saab, for coming. Keep coming. Chawla Saab, keep coming. And all the honorable guests. Thank you very much for coming, and Pakistan Pindala.
Now request President Cass to give souvenirs to our esteemed speakers. Firstly, I request Dr. Iqbal Chawla to receive his souvenir. I now request Dr. Riaz Ahmad to receive his souvenir.